shots fired at the suspect.
Boulder police shoot at a suspect wanted in a carjacking. Officers are giving us new details about what happened.
We did spot the vehicle driving erratically, and that suspect during this encounter brandished a firearm at officers.
Colorado's legislative session went down to the wire, finishing just minutes before the deadline.
We've done what we've come here to do.
We're hearing from Democrats and Republicans about what was and wasn't passed.
It is certainly puzzling that Democrats didn't partner with us to pass more of those bills.
The rebuilding process is just beginning after the Marshall fire, and people are seeing the struggle it will take to get back to normal.
The process is going to be a long process.
Plus, start planning for football season. The Broncos' upcoming schedule will be released in just a few hours. Happening now at 11, we're learning new details about a carjacking in Broomfield that ended with police firing at the suspect. This video shows the scene in Boulder near Table Mesa and US 36. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta has been there all morning. And Veronica, we just got an update from police. What do we know now?
So first off, this entire area near Table Mesa Drive and US 36, it is going to be closed for several hours. So if at any part during the rest of this morning and the afternoon this is a part of your commute, you might be better off just staying off here, off Table Mesa. Exactly. Police say this is why it's a really big crime scene. We have evidence markers still out here that police are investigating, and they're going to be taking some hours to do that. So just something to keep in mind as the morning goes on. Take a look at this video. You see those shell casings we're referencing as well. They're on the ground there. This exactly is near Table Mesa Drive in Moorhead. Boulder PD say this all started over in Broomfield as a road rage incident and an armed carjacking. The suspect drove off in a white truck. Officers put a be on the lookout for that suspect. And then an hour later, Boulder police were informed of an erratic driver that was over on Pearl Street that was damaging property. When police encountered that driver, the driver showed a gun and police started shooting at that suspect. That interaction then came here near Table Mesa and Moorhead.
The suspect continued driving through the city, and at some point stop sticks were deployed and the vehicle's tires were deflated. The vehicle kept driving, and the vehicle attempted to drive onto the sidewalk, an area where there were pedestrians. And so officers deployed vehicle maneuvers to disable the vehicle and safely take the suspect into custody.
And the good news this morning is that no officers were injured. That suspect was not shot, but was taken to the hospital for some minor injuries. They are in custody as well. As for the roadways behind me, you see that caution tape. It's now on the ground, but again, still closed off area. Something to keep in mind as the day goes on. We're live in Boulder this morning. I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
A very busy morning, Veronica. Thank you. Now happening today at the state capitol, an exhale. Things are quiet after a busy final day of the legislature ended just before midnight. Denver 7's Jessica Crawford is live outside the Capitol. And Jessica, we're hearing from both sides this morning after that race to the finish.
That's right. And first of all, Democratic leadership addressing this session. They were calling it historic today, and they were saying that so much was addressed, from the environment to abortion access. Let's take a look back at this session. Speakers called this a busy 120 days with multiple pieces of landmark legislation being passed. Some of that includes mandates for new buildings and homes to be more energy efficient in the future. There was also a bill to protect access to abortions in the state of Colorado in anticipation of Roe v. Wade being rolled back. One of the biggest successes, the governor said, was the bipartisan way that lawmakers decided to use the American Rescue Plan funds. He says that the main things that were top of mind for both parties include addressing affordable housing, behavioral health, and homelessness, to name a few.
Investing in our schools, making our communities safer, saving people money on health care. These are issues that affect every Coloradan. And over the last 4 months, we've worked hard with our Democratic and Republican colleagues to deliver on these bold goals. And today I am so proud to stand here with our legislative leaders and members of the General Assembly to really say we've done what we've come here to do.
We've also heard from Republicans about the legislative session, the GOP introducing 44 bills, but only 5 of them passed. They say they're disappointed Democrats didn't pass more bills focusing on education, lowering costs, and addressing crime.
Disappointed that our Democratic counterparts were not able to see the merits of the 35 or so bills that didn't pass. Given the state of this state and the dire economic circumstances that Coloradans find themselves in, it is certainly puzzling that Democrats didn't partner with us to pass more of those bills.
And this whole time that we've been standing here, we've been seeing lots of people holding posters, holding signs, going in groups, and they're going just beyond that hill right here at the Capitol to protest. And so we're really seeing that even though a lot of these bills just passed, the impact is already being felt. Live here at the Capitol, I'm Jessica Crawford, Denver 7.
All right, Jessica, thank you. Now waiting for the governor's signature addresses Colorado's fentanyl crisis. Lawmakers passed it last night just before the legislative session ended. Now, the bill makes possession of 1 gram or more of fentanyl a felony. Lawmakers also approved new wording about criminal intent. It says the felony charge would be dropped if a defendant can prove to a jury that they didn't know the substance they had contained fentanyl. Now, critics argue that opens a window for all cases to be turned into misdemeanors going forward.
It's either I want to get this drug off my streets, or the others say, well, we want to just learn to live with it. I don't want to learn to live with this drug killing kids. I don't want parents to have to worry about whether or not their kid's going to come home from a Saturday night party.
What we're saying is that if you do come in contact with that fentanyl unknowingly, that you're not a felon. And that's so very important. We heard story after story after story of people who died from accidental or unknowing fentanyl poisonings. They should not be wrapped up in this.
Now, new language in the bill also ensures treatment is available for people going to jail. You can find our other stories on bills that were passed and the ones that didn't up on the denverchannel.com and on the Denver 7 Plus app. We will also have more coverage on the session, a full wrap-up coming up later today on Denver 7 News at 5. Happening now, students from 6 high schools are walking out in response to the possibility of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. Video from Air Tracker 7 shows students from Jefferson High School in Edgewater. They walked from their school to Sloan's Lake. Students say they wanted to organize the walkout because they felt their rights were being threatened and they wanted to bring attention to those whose voices aren't heard. Now, the Supreme Court is also meeting today for the first time since that draft opinion was leaked. Boulder County is considering making changes to what materials can be used when building homes. The county will be discussing expanding rules to include the whole county in a meeting in about a half an hour. Now, that means that people would have to use things like fire-resistant construction materials on the roof, attic venting, non-combustible gutters, and different materials for fences.
We're also focused on trying to create a zone of 3-foot non-combustible zone around the house. One of the things that was true in the Marshall Fire was that many cases we had things like combustible fencing working like a fuse, burning back to the house.
Now, if the new rules get approved, they would likely start in June, early in June. Now, hundreds of people who lost their homes to the Marshall Fire are now trying to rebuild. Some people only had partial damage, but as Denver 7's Veronica Acosta reports, the rebuilding process for both groups has already been a struggle for these families.
It's been more than 4 months since the Marshall Fire.
I do remember the day.
Kevin Petty remembers the initial small white plume of smoke, the state troopers evacuating homes, the flames, and the feelings.
The whole thing was an absolute roller coaster ride. I must have slept maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours total.
The next morning, once flames had died down, Petty sent me this email asking to check on his home.
We pretty much thought, there's no way that our house is still standing.
This is South Shore at Harper Lake. A gentleman named Kevin, he emailed us not long ago, like 15 minutes, asking if his home was okay. So this is his house here, standing, the side portion of it a little burnt, but this was the damage to Petty's home and what it looked like in December. This is what it looks like now.
We thought, house is still standing, we're lucky. And then we got in here and we thought, oh my gosh, we're not so lucky.
The home is gutted. A staircase once covered in his daughter's handprints now sits covered in soot. Everything the Pettys once owned, gone.
Every time I step into this house, it just saddens me to know what we had and to know that this was home.
This isn't just Petty's story. It's the story for hundreds of others whose homes weren't burnt to the ground but significantly damaged. they're now all faced with that tough question about the future.
We're going to rebuild. We're going to put this place back together.
I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Let's talk the Broncos now. It's a big day for NFL fans and Broncos country. We'll find out this season's Broncos schedule in just a little bit. Now, our Broncos insider Troy Rank says with Russell Wilson, the team will have a handful of primetime games, including returning to Monday Night Football. Now, we already know the Broncos will play Jacksonville in London on October 30th, and they will play the LA Rams in LA. That is on Christmas Day. Now, the Broncos also play 6 games in the division. That's like normal every year. This year, they'll also play against the AFC South and NFC West. They also have games against the Jets, Ravens, and Panthers. So it's just order right now. The Broncos have 8 home games next season. They had 9 last season. The schedule will be released at 6 o'clock tonight. Single game tickets will go on sale right after that. The Avs are back at practice this morning after taking just a couple of days off. They're still waiting for their next round opponent. They're going to play the winner of the St. Louis-Minnesota series. The Blues lead 3-2. Game 6 is tonight. We're paying more for everyday items like groceries and gas. And still ahead, the spike in prices is putting a financial burden on American families. Plus, the Biden administration is working on ways to fix a baby formula shortage that's hitting the U.S.